because it's a big slap in the face for Hillary Clinton after President Obama said he's confident he could have won the election. He would have won the election if he were running against Donald Trump. Listen.
I am confident in this vision because I'm confident that if I had run again and articulated it, I think I could have mobilized a majority of the American people to rally behind it.
But President-elect Trump, quickly firing back on Twitter, tweeting, President Obama said that he thinks he would have won against me. He should say that, but I say no way. Jobs leaving, ISIS, Obamacare, etc. You know, Hillary Clinton ran on Obama's record. Let's not forget that, right? That was his record. I mean, he went out there and said, this is my legacy. Vote for her because it's my legacy. It was his record. But you know what? She lost. So while the packaging of the candidate, with all its elitist edges, may not have been so great, neither were the policies. In other words, there was no there. I want to go to Blake Berman, who's in Washington, D.C. with the very latest on all things Trump today. Hey, Blake.
Hi there, Trish. And you read one of those tweets there. Well, the president-elect also appeared to react with a follow-up tweet last night. A couple hours after his initial response to President Obama, Mr. Trump fired off another tweet, and here's what it said, quoting here. He said, "The world was gloomy before I won. There was no hope. Now the market is up nearly 10%, and Christmas spending is over $1 trillion. That from the president-elect last night. Also over the holiday weekend, Mr. Trump announced that he would be halting the charity bearing his name, trying to avoid any potential conflicts of interest while in the White House. However, the office of the New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman saying in a statement today that its investigation of the foundation will remain despite Mr. Trump's intentions. Meantime, the president-elect also announcing 2 more jobs today. Tom Bossert, who was the former Deputy Homeland Security Advisor for George W. Bush, will advise Mr. Trump in a similar role and will also be the administration's top leader on cybersecurity issues. Additionally, the president-elect is now reaching from the Trump Organization. Mr. Trump announcing that Jason Greenblatt, who is the chief legal officer at the Trump Organization and has been a confidant of Mr. Trump's for the past 2 decades or so, will become a special representative for international negotiations. Those announcements this afternoon.
All right, thanks so much, Blake Berman, everyone. Joining me right now for more analysis on all this, I have Fox News contributors Leslie Marshall and Rachel Campos-Duffy. Good to see you guys. Hope you had a wonderful holiday. I mean, here President Obama says, I could have done it. I could have won. I'm confident I could have won. Rachel, what's wrong with that exuberance, that confidence that he has? What is he missing in all this?
Well, I think Donald Trump nailed it. Obamacare was a big issue, and those premium hikes happened just before the election, and everyone knew it was a failed policy, and the doctors were frustrated and quitting. And you had, of course, the open border policy, bad trade deals. People were frustrated. And, you know, victory has 1,000 fathers, and, you know, defeat is an orphan. And it's very clear to me that had Hillary eked out a win there, President Obama would have been first in line to take credit for this. And as you mentioned in your talking points at the top of the show, he is the one himself who said Hillary isn't the only one on the ballot. I am too. My policies are too. My ideas and my legacy. And the American people looked at the last 8 years and they said, no more of this. We don't want a community organizer in the White House. We don't like those ideas. And they put a businessman in the White House.
You know, they didn't have a great candidate. Leslie Marshall, you and I have talked about that before, in that she was really not warm and fuzzy enough for people to relate to her in the way that they would have needed to relate to her to put her in the top job. And she also just was for whatever reason willing to ignore big parts of her base, despite the fact that her husband even said to her, get out to Pennsylvania, get out to Michigan, you need these people in Ohio. So she was a lousy candidate. But that aside, I mean, wasn't this effectively just a rejection of the last 8 years? The fact the economy's gone nowhere and we're increasingly in a more dangerous situation internationally?
No, I don't agree. I know a lot of people disagree with me on that regarding President Obama, his legacy, and that this, in a sense, was a reaction to the last 8 years. I think it was more a reaction to Hillary. I think it was more her ignoring, as you said, her husband, former President Clinton, saying, don't forget the disenfranchised white voters, not talking about the economy. And quite frankly, if you look at the people that stayed home, and it is a numbers game, and if you look at the numbers, the youth that supported Bernie, President Obama had those numbers overwhelmingly. The African Americans that supported President Obama, he had those numbers overwhelmingly. And so honestly, I think there is some merit to what he said. But as a Democrat, my first reaction was it was more of a slam to Hillary than it was to Donald Trump.
And yet, you know, if you think about it, Leslie, he went out there, he did campaign for a whole bunch of people. He took some pretty unprecedented steps. I mean, basically endorsing, what, 150 different Democratic candidates in the weeks prior to the election. He was out there stumping. His wife was out there stumping for Hillary Clinton. He told everyone, you got to do this. You got to vote for her. If you don't vote for her, it's a slap in the face, effectively, to me. And they still didn't, Leslie. Why?
Well, honestly, I'm not a big believer in endorsements at all, no matter who they come from. We have seen President Bill Clinton, who's had a higher approval rating over the years than anybody out there running, stump for individuals, including his wife, the last time around in 2008 and this time again, and they have not won, and even other races, whether it be congressional races, gubernatorial races. So I'm not a big believer in endorsements.
It's the candidate itself. All right. Well, you know, I'll give you this. She was a lousy candidate, and she didn't relate to the people that she needed to relate to. But I still think, Rachel, there's something more going on, because you look at what has happened in this country, and it wasn't just the Oval Office. This was a landslide. And the conservatives are in charge now, and there's a reason for that. Tell me what it is.
The reasons are the reasons you mentioned at the top of the show. Listen, the people who voted most enthusiastically for Obama, single women, minorities, young people, they're the ones doing the worst under the Obama economy and presidency. And let me tell you, this is how you know they're really, that Obama has really run out of excuses. If you listen to that interview he had with David Axelrod this weekend, he mentioned race. He's trying to blame it on race again. And listen, I voted for Donald Trump. My neighbors, so many of them voted for Donald Trump, and they are not racist. They are people that are frustrated because they're losing their businesses, they're losing their jobs, they feel like we have bad trade deals. And listen, right here in the Midwest, we had an ISIS stabbing in St. Cloud, Minnesota. These are moms and dads who are worried about our country, our future, and our security. And I think for Barack Obama and Democrats to undermine those real reasons, those very legitimate reasons with overtones of racism, is offensive, and frankly, it's part of the reason why they're losing.
Yeah, and look, I agree with you. It's a whole lot bigger than the color of someone's skin. Leslie, Rachel, thank you so much. Good to have you here.